So hey y'all, we're back with chapter 2 of Matthew. I'm so happy to be continuing on in learning about Jesus. Just to recap, in Matthew chapter 1, we went over the entire lineage from Abraham down to Jesus and his birth, and then we went over Joseph about to marry Mary, and him discovering she was pregnant, being told by an angel to marry her anyway, and explaining to him how her pregnancy came about. And so here we're going to pick up with Jesus' birth and his early infancy and all of the stuff that was happening at that time, and we'll be able to dive a little deeper into a few of those details. And I'm using my interlinear Bible, so some of the words may not line up with a regular KJV, NIV, or whatever translation you're using, but it's close enough to where you can follow along. Now, when Jesus had been born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men arrived from the east to Jerusalem. The wise men in the original language were called magi. It was kind of translated as a man of great knowledge. So it could be a person who was into like mystical things. They were into divination, but it can also include like people who were astronomers. They knew knowledge about the stars and the moon, and that's specifically what these men. I don't know what else they were into, but we knew that they had knowledge about the stars. And the description of them. Sorry guys, I have allergies really bad right now. But in the description of them, they describe them as a sacred caste. And the only, or caste, however you pronounce it, CASTE. And the only culture that we know of at this time that operates on a caste system is India. So I'm just going to leave that there. I don't know for sure where they came from, but if they did come from India, that would explain a lot, or what is currently known as India, where it was at that time. That would explain a lot about the timeline and the journey that they had to take, the significance of the journey. And so, anyway, these guys were known to be star readers, and so they understood the stars. They understood when something looked different, and in different areas of the Bible, it talks about God putting the stars in the sky to represent angels or even people. And Jesus, when he was born, there was a star so bright that even in other countries and other nations, they could see this star shining, and it was shining in the vicinity of where he was. So that's what they did. They saw the star shining, and they decided to make the journey all the way from wherever they were from to Jerusalem. And because the star was kind of like, it wasn't an exact location, because his location was hidden from people, but for a reason that we're about to find out. But it was in a general vicinity to where they decided they were gonna go and see the king instead, to try to figure out what was going on. Well, this journey could estimated have taken them several months to even make this journey, because they lived thousands of miles away. And so they come to Jerusalem, and they start asking the king's men, "Where is he born, King of the Jews? For we saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." So right here we see that it wasn't just the Jewish people that were awaiting the Savior, awaiting the Son of Man, as he was referred to in the Old Testament. They weren't the only ones that were anticipating the birth or the coming of this Messiah. All over the world, they were hearing about all of these moves of God in Egypt and taking over all these nations, how he was taking care of his people, how he punished his people, how great he was. And so a lot of people, even if they were pagan in nature, even if they wanted to still worship statues and demons and other gods, they still anticipated seeing this Messiah who was spoken of to be a savior to the people. And so they wanted to be some of the first people to come and worship him. They saw the star, they saw how bright it was, and they start asking the king's men. But Herod, the king, having heard this, he was troubled, and all of Jerusalem with him. And so this perplexed me for a while, because I'm like, okay, so if he was upset, why would Jerusalem be upset with him? They were excited to know about a Messiah. They were excited to see. In their culture back then, they had the ideology that the Messiah would come and save them from the oppression of the Roman Empire, or the oppression of other nations. That, some of them had lofty ideas that the Messiah would come and basically make their nation greater among every other nation that he was trying to oppress them or come up against them. And so everybody was excited about the thought of a Messiah. So I was confused on why they said that Jerusalem was troubled with him. But come to find out, Herod was a very volatile man. So he was very unpredictable. So with him, he started to feel insecure, and he started to get upset at the thought of there being another king to take over his throne, similar to what we saw with Saul. So in that spirit of him being very volatile and unstable, it made the people in the nation around him, in the city around him, uneasy, because they had no idea how he would react to the thought of there being a birth of somebody who will be raised up to be the king instead of him. He worshipped his authority and his position on the throne. So having gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he asked of them where the Christ was to be born. So he started asking the people who were familiar in and out with the Torah, which is what the Old Testament was called back then. It was the book that they had. So he was asking them because, he probably wasn't familiar with every single prophecy or every single verse. And so he's like, where was he prophesied to be born? And they said to him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet. So his throne was in Jerusalem, but Bethlehem was in Galilee, I believe. It was another city of Israel as a whole. Israel has several different factions that was divided up among the 12 tribes. And so here they were letting him know where it was prophesied that he would be. And you, Bethlehem, so they're repeating the prophecy to him. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, in no way are you least among the governors of Judah. For out of you shall come a governor who shall shepherd my people Israel. Then, after he met with all the priests and the scribes to try to dig into what the prophecies were, he secretly called the wise men. So he pulled them to the side in secret without the priests and the scribes knowing what he was trying to do. And he asked them exactly the time of the star appearing. So we have to understand that at this time, much time has already passed from the time of Jesus' birth, from when they started to see the star rise at his birth, and for them making the journey, and then they came and they stayed with him. They stayed with Herod for a while. He had to call all these meetings. He called all the scribes and all the priests all over Israel. And so these people had to make a journey to see him. And so all of this time had passed. And so here he was trying to secretly figure out, away from the priests and the scribes, because he knew that they would start murmuring and talking about what he could possibly be doing and trying to brace the people for impact. Sent them to Bethlehem, and he said, going, search carefully for the child, and when you find him, bring me word again, so that I may come and worship him. So here he's being duplicitous. He's because these wise men probably aren't very familiar with his erratic behavior, volatile behavior. They probably think that he is being genuine in his asking for the location of the child. So they agreed because they were star readers. They trusted that they would be able to find him through the following of the star that was up in the sky, if they were be a little bit more precise and pinpoint exactly where he was. So and having heard the king, they departed. So they agreed and they left. And behold, the star which they saw in the east went before them until it had come and stood over where the child was. So God made the star shine and basically direct them on a path, just like when the children of Israel were coming out of Egypt, they were led by cloud and fire. That's the same way that God led the wise men to Jesus, so that they can worship him. He wanted them, it was part of his plan to create provision and to honor the birth of Jesus. And so and seeing the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with a great joy. And having come into the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary. Okay, so this is what makes me think that some time had passed, because, well, this is the first thing, because they said child. He was no longer a baby. He was at this point considered a toddler, which technically could be anywhere from 1 year old up until maybe school age, or maybe like, I would say 4 or 5. So he was older. He was no longer a little baby. So some time had passed in all of this that was taking place. And falling down, they worshipped him, and opening their treasures, they presented gifts to him, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, so they decided to stay there. They stayed the night. They went to sleep to rest up before they were going to take the journey back home through Jerusalem. But they were warned in a dream, presumably by an angel. Some people, in research, it seems that some people believe that it was angels that came to speak to them in their dream. And they were warned not to return to Herod. So they went into their country another way. So by them saying that, it was estimated that because they decided not to go through Jerusalem, all in an effort to avoid Herod, to honor the word of the Lord that came to them in the dream, they ended up taking a longer route back home. And they having departed, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph by a dream. So here Joseph again, we see he's a dreamer, and he has another encounter with an angel in a dream. And this is right after the wise men left. So while they're on their journey back home, however much time that's making, the angel is already in preparation for Joseph and his family. So he appeared to Joseph by a dream, saying, "Rise up, take the child and his mother with you, and flee into Egypt, and be there until I shall tell you. For Herod is about to look for the child in order to destroy him." And rising up, he took along the child and his mother by night, and withdrew into Egypt. So they left quickly after the wise man left. So they still had time to get settled into Egypt and kind of like go off the map, to disappear. And he was there until the end of Herod, that might be fulfilled that spoken by the Lord through the prophet, saying, "Out of Egypt I have called my son." So after some time had passed, because Herod expected, I mean, he wasn't a stupid man, so he kind of expected that it would take some time for the wise men to go and find Jesus and then to come back to him. But when the time that he set in his mind had already went past, it starts here. It says, "Then seeing that he was mocked by the wise men, Herod was greatly enraged." So on top of him already being insecure and under wanting to be attacked by, wanting to attack the future king of the Jews, he became even more angered by feeling that he was betrayed by the people around him. And I would assume that he was even kind of skeptical of the people that were actually in Jerusalem, because he didn't know if the wise man met with people on the road on their way to try to find Jesus. He didn't know what had transpired. So at this point, his anger is pointed at all of the people in his jurisdiction. So Herod was greatly enraged, and having sent, he killed all the boys in Bethlehem and in all of his districts from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he exactly asked from the wise men. So here we have an exact timeline from the time that the wise men told him that they saw the star to the time where he estimated that they should have been returned to him was 2 years. And so that's why they sent throughout the land to try to kill every boy around that age. Order to kill was just for the children and the young boys that were in Bethlehem, where Jesus was estimated to be born. So anyway, continuing on. Then was fulfilled that spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, a voice was heard in Ramah, wailing and bitter weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted because they were not. So he went on a very vicious killing spree and murdered a lot of children. A lot of children and a lot of families were devastated by Herod's very volatile and vicious and sudden attack of their families. And so this right here is showing why the people were very on edge when they noticed that he was on edge about hearing about the Messiah being born, who they kept calling the King of the Jews, which is what set him off as well. But Herod having expired, so he passed away, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream in Egypt, saying, rise up, take along the child and his mother, and pass over into the land of Israel, for those seeking the soul of the child have expired. And rising up, so he was obedient, he listened to the angel, and he decided to get up and move. And rising up, he took along the child and his mother and came into the land of Israel. But hearing that Archelaus reigned over Judea in place of his father Herod, so this is his son, and Joseph and their family had been in Egypt for quite a while at this point, however long it took Herod to die from the moment that he moved out. And so he probably didn't know the temperament of Herod's son Archelaus. Am I saying that right? Yeah, Archelaus. He had fear. So hearing that Archelaus reigned over Judea in place of his father Herod, he feared to go there. And so technically the angel told him to go into Israel. So Joseph decided to be obedient, but not to go back home to Judea. He and being warned in a dream, he departed into the parts of water. And behold, the heavens were open of Galilee. And so he went into another part. So maybe, well, okay, so Bethlehem was in Judea and Galilee is a different city. So he went into a different city other than where they were originally from, which was Bethlehem. And coming, he lived in a city called Nazareth, so as to fulfill that spoken by the prophets. He shall be called a Nazarene. All right, so that's the end of chapter 2. I would love to see you guys' comments, any questions that you might have for me. I would appreciate that. But also, if you have any pointers, if you have any other information that is pertaining to what we are reading, I would love to welcome that as well. So, yeah, feel free to interact with me. God bless.